If you ever wondered why taking a big deep breath calms your nerves, you are in for a treat today. You see, if your mind is at peace, it can help unlock real potential in your life. As a urologist, presenter, YouTuber, and a small-time influencer, I encounter people from all walks of life. Today, I have with me Dr. Renee Ostertag from Denver, Colorado, who runs the Green Tree Mind. She's a doctor of physical therapy and a body intelligence expert. I'm going to learn from her today the important things that we need to focus on in our mind and body to lead to our most successful and fulfilled lives. We met once on September 28, 2019 at the beautiful Broadmoor Hotel in Colorado Springs, Colorado at the 98th Annual South Central Section AUA meeting. AUA is the American Urologic Association. So I'm really, really excited. I normally talk about very concrete topics, but this is kind of outside of my wheelhouse, and I'm really excited to have Renee on. Welcome, Renee Ostertag.
Thank you, Dr. John Lynn. I have to tell you, when I am in a conversation like this, I feel like I'm outside of my own wheelhouse. And it's this very inconvenient thing because, so I'm a physical therapist, and a few years into my profession, I very inconveniently discovered that joints don't live in a silo, and that human relationships, our thinking, our feeling, our environment, our experiences, both past and present, influence how the body functions. And so a few years into physical therapy school, I was really frustrated. And I went on to get another master's degree after the doctorate to become a specialist in how the brain and nervous system work. And that was really helpful because I really got clear that the brain ultimately is the decider if somebody's going to have pain or not. And we know that because if you step on a tack, that's going to hurt, clearly. But if you step on a tack and a speeding bus is coming at you, your brain's going to decide that tack pain isn't important right now. So we can experience tissue damage without pain. And vice versa, if the tack is on your foot and you're a professional ballerina, the threat is higher, so you can actually hurt more. And there's all kinds of research that shows, like violin players, when they have an injury, it hurts more than ballerina dancers. And vice versa, with an ankle injury, the violinist doesn't have as much pain as the ballerina.
It sounds like what you're saying is that your mind has the ability to prioritize where you perceive or feel the pain.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly. And the mind can turn tissue damage up in volume or down in volume. And then what that, again, very inconveniently to my mechanically driven brain, like I like 1 + 1 = 2, right? Linear logic, love it.
That's me.
I can wrap my head around that, right? And so this is why I'm always feeling out of my wheelhouse, because pain is a whole brain problem, not just a left brain problem. And the right brain does not follow logical rules. And that's where emotion plays a role in turning the volume of our pain up and down. And so what science shows us is that tissue damage and pain actually have a very weak correlation. But pain and fear have a very strong correlation. Meaning, I told that to a patient one time and she was like, hold on, let me get this straight. Are you telling me that pain and fear do this, but pain and tissue damage are like this? And I said that, well done, right?
Yeah, so there's that discongruence between the mind and the tissue, and then but there's congruence between that whatever you feel, whatever you perceive in your mind.
Yes. And here's where the inconvenient, uncomfortable part for me comes. And I feel like I'm out of my own wheelhouse because I'm very left brain oriented, but the right brain is so influential, right? And like our mind, is 90 to 99% unconscious or subconscious. And so sometimes I think of it like my conscious experience is being controlled by these like puppeteers behind me. And I don't have a say in it, and I don't have control. And then we can learn to kind of look behind us at the like marionette puppeteers. We can kind of learn to look underneath the hood of our own conscious experience. And then we can start to learn to identify within our nervous system circuits of threat versus circuits of safety. And all of that can be alchemized, which is what I love to do. And there's my passion.
It sounds like what you're saying is that the activities, the things that we do is just, or the things that we think about in the forefront of our mind is just a very small portion of our thought processes. And what controls what comes to the forefront is possibly controlled by stuff that we suppress in the background. And then sometimes bringing awareness to what you're thinking in the background can help influence how you feel and perceive things in the foreground.
Very well said. And I can give you an example of that. I worked with a woman right around the time, anyway, a certain president was elected and she wasn't happy with said president. She comes in with back pain and sciatica, and we were doing all the traditional mechanical things. Again, my like comfort zone, like, hey, let's do some McKenzie stretches. Let's do some dry needling. Let's get you on your home exercise program. And 3 sessions in, 0 change, which is annoying to both me and her. Because then, you know, I like my little one-dimensional pain track, right? The biomedical model.
You do X, Y happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so we X'd and Y didn't happen. So we had to have the conversation about the 3 dimensions of pain: biopsychosocial, right? Like psychology, sociology influences biology. And so I invited her to go home and just start tracking with a very open, curious mind. When your pain is at its worst, what's happening in your posture, what's happening in your thinking and feeling, and what's happening around you. What's happening when it's at its best, what's happening when it's at its worst. We need to collect data on both. And so she came back and her pain was 90% resolved.
Wow.
Yeah. And I made that exact face, like unexpected shock in a good way. Tell me more. And she said, well, I realize that I sit in the recliner and I watch the news and I just get more and more pissed off and more anxious and more worried. And a certain unnamed president, it really is a pain in my bottom.
Literally pain in the neck and pain in the butt.
And it was like, once she realized that, right, to bring it back to what you said about bringing the background to the foreground, she was able, the pain 90% went away, which is really cool, but also inconvenient because I don't have necessarily control over that. I can't do X to make Y happen. But what she did is she brought an unconscious threat to the conscious foreground and then could reevaluate, is this really dangerous here for me in this moment right now? No, I'm sitting on a recliner chair at home. This is annoying and I don't like it. I can turn off the TV.
And what you said is so true. And I don't know if you read the book by Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow. We have system 1, system 2 thinking, right? The one of the ways to think is the easy, convenient way, because humans are lazy in general. We want to make decisions using the easiest and the fastest way possible. Can you imagine if you're trying to figure out, well, what lipstick do I want to use today? And if you analyze, okay, well, what color, what shade, how thick to put it on, how thin, and who makes the lipstick, how was it tested? I mean, if you thought about every single thing, you would never be able to make a decision. So humans take shortcuts, and those shortcuts are mostly emotional, like you said. So purchase decisions, how we make decisions every single day, most of it is emotional. And believe it or not, people in marketing exploit that to their advantage. So
Yeah.
what you said, understanding what's happening in the background, the puppeteers that are controlling us, our thought processes that are in the foreground, being able to manage that and bringing about awareness of that, I think is really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can make the difference between needing surgery or not. It can make the difference between needing to be on medication for the rest of your life or not. But we're not necessarily taught or trained how to switch from thinking type 1 to type 2. And it's hard. And we like the easy road, just give me the quick fix. And so I'm really this past couple of weeks leaning into the Duke's head women's basketball coach had a 2.5-minute talk on YouTube, and they record her giving pep talks to the players. And she said, so many of us fall into the thinking trap. Oh, it's going to be better when summer comes. It's going to be better when this final's over. My patient population, it's going to be better when this pain is gone. It's going to be better once I see that doctor. It's going to be better once I take this medication. She says, it's never going to get better. It's never going to get easier. It's going to stay hard. So you need to wrap your head around that and make a mindset shift. It's not going to get easier. I need to get better at hard.
Interesting.
Right? And so this one-dimensional track of thinking that most of us have, it's painful, literally and metaphorically, because medical system, which I come from and you come from, we're taught to think in that, left brain linear logical way, and we focus on the target organ, right? I have high blood pressure, take high blood pressure medication. I have, a urology problem, focus on that. And that's real and true and necessary. And what the one-dimensional thinking trap blocks us from seeing is the nervous system is the one feeding the target organ. And so if I have high blood pressure, what we don't think about in the Western medicine system model typically is, well, if you're in fight or flight, high blood pressure is actually the correct response. But we're not necessarily thinking, oh, are you in fight or flight? Why? What can you do to not be in fight or flight? What can you change in your environment externally? What can you shift? What can you change in your environment internally? And how can you get back to a nervous system that's more regulated and safe instead of dysregulated and threat? And that very often, and biology suggests, it will get you out of high blood pressure.
So that's a very interesting concept, because when I deal with guys with enlarged prostates, they have horrible urinary symptoms, getting up at night, having to go void frequently during the day, feeling like they have to rush to the bathroom when they have the urge. We call it urgency, frequency, and nocturia. Even though I de-obstruct their prostate, they go from peeing through a tiny little slit to a wide open channel. Mm-hmm. Their flows improve, but a lot of times the behavior has been so ingrained for years, and now they have to retrain their minds into realizing, I don't have to go to the bathroom again after I just went. Some of it could be just habit. The fight or flight, if you're constantly watching the news, and I don't watch TV, if you're constantly looking at your Facebook feed or your timeline, social media feed, and your exposure to all those negative things may influence how you feel. It's kind of like the lady you talked about, literally a pain, the sciatica, the pain in her butt, right? Turn off that. And also, like you said, recognizing the external factors that may be influencing how you physically feel.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this conditioned stimulus response. right? Like when we repeat a behavior, it wires it in. And then you go in and you know, rotor the tubes, they have to do some kind of top-down regulation and in a way learn to reinterpret sensation and take control back, right? Because the body's running the show and the mind's kind of being drug along. And it's like, okay, wait, the problem has been resolved mechanically. Now the mind needs to correct the body. And I say this often, like the back that cried wolf or the urge to pee that cried wolf. Like in your circumstance, learning to interpret which sensations are crying true danger versus which sensation, which leads to behavior, is conditioned, patterned, and that we can change with awareness.
Yeah, so very true. Now, do you work with your patients or clients on bringing that about, or what exactly do you do in your practice?
I do improv all day long, John.
How fun.
Yeah. And the reason I say improv is because, you know, I'm a physical therapist, a psychotherapist, and with this body, mind, right brain emergent way of working, I never know what I'm going to get when somebody comes through the door.
True. That's true.
And it's the same with improv, which I'm trained in. And there's kind of this progression as we work in the improv of theater and improv of life where we don't know what's going to happen. That's scary. We're ineffective. We can shift to we don't know what's going to happen. It's scary and we're effective. And then we can shift to it's scary. We don't know what's going to happen. And it's fun. And so I work with people to help them become a nervous system ninja, where they start to become aware of their nervous system. Is it in fight or flight or freeze, or is it in their regulated green trees? And we become teammates working towards a common goal of health. So what I do is I stay as relaxed as I can in the face of the unknown. And sometimes it's beautiful and sometimes it's scary because the unknown is a very scary thing. And when we're going down into the recesses of our unconscious, we don't always know what's going to come up. But it's like Star Wars, like you get called on this journey, a hero's journey. You may or may not want to go. But mentors come along and allies come along and you learn and you develop skills of awareness of my nervous system, threat or safety, because it is a binary system. It doesn't always follow logical rules, but it is binary. And once, okay, threat here, is it true danger or can we transform this into safety? And then we do. And then people, it's like driving, you know, my dad was a European race car driver and an auto mechanic. And he always used to say, Renee, if you can fix people like I fix cars, you'll be fine. And I hated that for years because it was like, people aren't cars, Dad. But in a way, he's kind of right because the autonomic nervous system is like a gas and a brake, right? Sympathetic arousal, vagus nerve for calming. And there's first gear, second gear, like we have a lot of gears in life. We have low energy and high energy. And the more we can learn to navigate our gas and brake and navigate the terrain of life with our different gears, the more confident we become, the more fun we become. And then we can line up our own mind and body to have more fun and to feel more confident and courageous and tap into the circuits of healing because they are indwelling. We all have the natural ability to heal. We just forget it when we're stuck in the problem, fight or flee, flight, freeze.
And sometimes it takes somebody external to help guide the person suffering through it and out of it. And from what I'm hearing is that you are the guide.
Yes. And I am the guide because it's a lot easier for me to see you than for you to see yourself.
100%.
Right. And I got eyes like a hawk. I've been doing this for 23 years. And I've also lived the journey myself. Right. Like, yes, I'm a healthcare provider and I'm a human who lived with PTSD for 3 decades. You know, my childhood, my mom dropped, she had a brain aneurysm and died. And then my dad was very unwell for a good 7, 8 years. And so I have a lot of historical trauma. And that just sort of stayed with me. And I just thought living in, fight or flight gas pedal all the time, hot red zone was normal. And like stillness was very scary, which is where I needed to go to heal. And then I had a lot of secondary trauma as a healthcare provider working in an ICU at Stanford for several years. And so I had to learn this myself. So I think that's why, and I love doing it. So I am a guide.
Yeah. So you talked briefly about Green Tree, and your practice is called Green Tree Mind. So how did you come up with that?
There was a woman named Caroline Leaf who has a PhD in speech language pathology and does a lot of neuroscience research. And she had this analogy about trees, and she would call the nervous system a metaphor. Trees were a nervous system metaphor. And she would say, we have black trees and white trees, and black is unhealthy and toxic and white is good and pure. And I didn't quite like the black and white model, but I did like the idea of trees as an analogy for the nervous system, and like green trees are this kind of lush, healthy forest that we can grow, and red trees is more threat, which can yield forest fires in mind, body, and life. And just the process of learning through a 3-dimensional way, biopsychosocial, how do we alchemize, how do we transform our red trees to our green trees from threat into safety?
That's awesome. So neat. So if people want to get a hold of you, do they go through your website, or how do they go about doing that?
Couple options. My website has, greentreemind.com, and you can contact us there. And then another option that's fun is I accidentally also became a YouTuber, and I have a lot of videos that people can go and check out. I have a lot of great exercises, strategies, tools on how to think, feel, and behave like a nervous system ninja. And there's some vagus nerve exercises on there that can be helpful for bringing back circuits of healing.
Let's talk about your almost 35,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
You started this journey over 5 years ago, but then you really ramped it up. What, the last 3 years? Tell me more about that.
I did a talk for AACN, the American Association of Critical Care Nurses, or ACCN, Critical Care Nurses. And in the talk, I wanted to give them some home exercise videos, and one of them was a vagus nerve reset. And so I made 2 videos and I put it up on YouTube, and then promptly forgot about it. And they watched it, and some other people watched it, and it started taking hold. And the vagus nerve reset went over 1 million views. And I had, 10, 20, 30,000 subscribers. And I was like, oh, wow, that was not intended, but very cool. And so then I just started going more with that. And I love being able to give. And there's a lot of people that can't afford luxuries like, good health care. And I really, truly believe in my heart that we can heal. And I love to be able to give resources that help people do that, and then just see where it goes. I've got some amazing, beautiful stories in the comments. I've got some wonderful clients and patients from it. One woman made in the comments, her 18-year-old daughter had died 2 weeks prior. And that exercise, the vagus nerve reset, was the first time she felt calm and peaceful since her daughter died. And it's nothing magical, and it's totally magical when we can create an environment that lets us tap into the indwelling circuits of peace that we have that provide healing and comfort and safety.
That is so amazing. I just made a post last night. It was a DM comment from a Facebook follower of mine. I made a video specific to her condition that she wrote to me in private, and her words of gratitude. We all have different things that we really value, gifts, words of affirmation, it's love, etc., touch. I think mine is, words of affirmation, because that really made me feel really, really good. You know, when she wrote that response, that she really appreciated the video. And also, I treated a guy recently with an enlarged prostate, and he was having horrible symptoms, did a surgery on him. He came back. He was almost in tears. He said, "I'm tearing up, Dr. Lin, because you changed my life." So the things that we do, even though we think it's left brain objective, de-obstructing something and making someone feel better, the emotional impacts can be tremendous sometimes. And sometimes that's even more than the physical improvement that you give them.
Well, I just want to give you some words of affirmation that, you know, I say left brain, decrease the obstruction. We can't do anything with just a left brain. It's always the whole brain. And I think that's why you get the results that you do and the feedback that you do, because I experience you as very integrated between the two. And the care, the devotion, the commitment, the love, the joy that you bring to every interaction fosters an environment for healing on all levels in every dimension. So
You're
it's
too
beautiful.
kind. Thank you. What I'm doing is paying it forward, because I think we talked about it right before we came on live. Gratitude is what gives you happiness. Really, you can't be happy unless you have the sense of gratitude. And first of all, being born as a human, huge plus. And number two, immigrating to the US, even though I wasn't born here, I was raised somewhere else. That perspective of being able to compare what was and what is now, oh my gosh, you have no idea how nice we have it here. We have people, the listening audience may hear or may bitch and moan about certain things in their lives, but it could be so much worse. So having that perspective can really bring about a lot of inner peace and just happiness, grateful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And I can fall right into that with you. I have a sister who lives in Kenya. I've seen, you know, poverty on a lot of levels there and elsewhere. And I've also seen, I think it was Mother Teresa talks about spiritual poverty in this country. And I have been a prey or a victim to that myself. And, you know, I was stuck in a pain silo of my own, and it was very psychological, emotional, spilling over into the physical, where I was out of balance and just giving so much and not receiving, and a healthcare provider. And I fell into this pit of like resentful despair. And intellectually, I know that gratitude's good, but when I'm biochemically stuck in that like bitter, painful, resentful place, it's really hard to get out of, in my experience. And I'm renewed in what Richard Rohr said about the cure for resentment is hour by hour gratitude. And that's the work. That's why it's hard. Like when we're in this blinders of pain, it's like, oh, it's comfortable chemically. It's not comfortable in my life, but like it's work to like remember that gratitude and good things do exist.
And thankfully, we have people like you who can help guide us out of this valley of despair and hours of darkness so that we can be our better selves.
Yeah, we need each other. You know, we all get stuck in that trap.
Yeah.
And if we don't have humans helping us out, talk about gratitude. You know, humans are, they're nightmares and they're beautiful. And we're all a combination of both. But I try to live more on the beautiful side than the nightmare side.
We are all works in progress. Thank you so much, Renee, for coming on and sharing your message.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
All right. And if for those of you who have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them below. You can also find Renee on Instagram, TikTok. She's also on Facebook as Green Tree Mind. And I will put the link to her website in the video description, as well as the links to her social media. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And thank you for the privilege of your time. Bye bye.